See, if the film disappears, will be Bob running for the camera so
Yes.
we don't ruin the rest of the film.
All right. And Jim Laramie's over there now, going to turn it on, turn the lights off, and see what we can do.
Focus. There we go. Oops.
Now there's your Hasbrook Cahoon.
Yeah, owners of the orchard at that time were I. Hasbrook Cahoon and Bertram Snell. Bertram Snell was a congressman for whom the Snell Lock was named. And here we go. Here we are back again.
We just had some jumping there, if you saw a space. There's before you put your addition on.
That's right. That's the original cold storage. Apparently some people walking through there should be seeing old cars.
So
Owners visit you.
based on what you told me, that's sometime between 37 and 57.
There's Mr. Cahoon and Mr. Snell. Mr. Cahoon on the left, Mr. Snell on the right, and my dad in the middle. And they're looking at a map on the back of one of our pieces of stationery, our letterhead. There's my uncle, Clyde Lewis. Oh my goodness, this is a long time ago.
That's the judge's father.
That's the judge's father, absolutely right. And Charlie would be interested in seeing this. Mr. Snell and Cahoon on the outside, they were the owners at this time.
The sound on it's not very good.
The sound is not very good.
No sound.
They showed showing them apples out of controlled atmosphere at the time. The first controlled atmosphere room in New York State was built right here at Chazy Orchards, and this was a method of keeping apples until the springtime. Inside the office, oh my, let me see, Clyde Lewis on the left. The next guy was our foreman, Pete Cologne. That's my dad. We may go back to it in a moment here. One of them was probably Albert Laramie, but I didn't see it. They're having a planning meeting. Okay, Cliff Curran is the second from the right. They're just apparently having a little business meeting there, and the guy in the red shirt, Jim Blair, that is Jimmy Blair's father. Can't think of his name now. My mind fails me here. Pruning by hand, we still do it the same way, fellas. Still do it the same way. Pruning is done by hand all during the winter, climbing the tree. Jake DeSalle. Jake DeSalle is up in the tree. I'm doing better than I thought I was, Bob. And more pruning by one of the workers. I can't see his face. Nelson Baker. Nelson Baker was a worker here, and a lot of his family are still here. Next thing coming up will be some pictures of what we had as still pictures just a moment ago on your film. I think Charlie Burnell is driving that tractor. The old red Dodge coming up there. I forgot what the number was on that truck, but he's bringing more fertilizer to the field. Men on the truck are unloading it. Alphonse Gagne in the middle there again. Pete Cologne was our foreman at the time, as I recall, putting on nitrogen fertilizer. Good ad for the fertilizer company. Bob, you're going to have to help me here. Don't go too far away.
Well, I got to be near the projector, but that's very good photography.
Yes, it is, wasn't it? Mr. Parkhurst took that, and I think we missed that on the lead-in, but Reverend Parkhurst took that. These are action shots of what you saw in the stills, and then the hand application of the fertilizer. Again, a measured amount. My dad would probably tell them they had oil cans there, and you put a can and a half, 2 cans under a tree. Very efficient way to do it. Had our own honeybees at the time, and they were necessary for pollination of the apple orchard, and I think you'll see some more of Charlie Blair. I got the name now, Jim. Jim Blair is looking. This probably should show his father in there. The bees were kept in yards at farms around the county. We kept them about 3 miles from the orchard. They use a smoker. That kind of quiets the bees and makes them sting less. You'll see that has to be a real beekeeper there, because Bob, you and I certainly would not work those bees with short sleeves.
Don, I'd put more smoke than that too.
I wouldn't. I'd put on an absolutely impermeable suit that tied me from the bottom of my feet to the tip of my head. There's the bees, the block sections that he's pointing out there as the honey cells capped over. And I could be wrong. That could also be brood cells capped over. That shows you what I know. But that is called a honey super, and a beehive is made up of 2 or 3 sections like that. In the spring, those bees are trucked from these nearby farms, from Champlain and Beekmantown area, into the orchard. And at that time, we placed 1 hive every 8th tree and every 5th row. Long, hard job, I'll tell you. Now we put them on pallets and we bunch them up in larger groups. We find out that the bees can fly easier than we can drive through the orchard, you know.
Good memory on that, Don.
Yes, sir. That's my mother and my middle brother. And my dad. Okay, there's Dad, Mom on the right, both deceased, and there's Phil. Phil Green happens to see this. He was not a very big bugger at that time, was he?
No, he was.
Now, the bees, at pollinating time, you can get pretty close to the hive. They won't bother you. They're too busy going back and forth between the blossoms. See the bee up there in the about the top center? Well, that's a good picture. My goodness gracious sakes alive. That is a nice one, isn't it?
Right.
Bob, as I told you before, I can't remember when I saw this film. So far, we keep our fingers crossed. It's working pretty good, isn't it? Dad's pointing out the bees up in there. My dad had lost his hair early in life. I never remember my dad with a full head of hair.
How old? What year was Phil born?
Phil, oh boy, I'll tell you a little later, okay? Okay, how about that lineup of tractors there? Phil is about, my brother Paul is 50, Phil is 40, is about 53.
So you're thinking this is a 50?
He is 53 years old right now. See these sprayers, the one we used at the time, the men rode the, going pretty fast. You rode up on those wings and sprayed down into the tree. Man was on each side of that thing, and let me tell you, when that sprayer went into a hole, one wheel, you got a thrill, because that wing dropped about 6 feet in about 1 second. Here's the landmark down there, the water tank at the lake. Still do about the same thing, different setup, but we haul water pumped out of the lake into the overhead tank. We fill our tanks with water and pick up the bulk spray material at the tank. A lot of the dirty times are gone. That big 55-gallon drum on the right carried lime sulfur. Terrible, miserable smelling stuff to handle. Of course, they only cost about 1/10 of what they do now, too, or probably 1/50th of what they do. But we essentially do a very similar thing, except we're much more careful with it. The people wear Tyvek suits, gloves, and there's the lime sulfur. That was for apple scab. See the water going in and the men pouring the stuff out. That smells, lime sulfur is, there's my house right there in the back, Dad's house, Jeff's house. We're down at Chazy Landing in what we call our hill orchard. And I don't know whether they'll show any others, but prior to this, men walked behind those sprayers dragging the hoses.
You do that at every tree?
They sprayed every tree like that, every...
Early in the spring?
All year long. All year long, from early spring till we finished. I don't know, but that could very well be Red Brunel up there. Lives over here on next to McQuinney's on that road.
So you sprayed it when...
There's Reginald Dupree. We showed a still of that. Reginald had the supply truck, and he came and serviced the trucks right in the field, filled the gas tanks, changed the oil, and everything like that. This must have been just for the picture. He didn't get much gas in. I think this is just for the picture. But we did it. They lubricated them. We did that up in my time here. Since Jeff has come, we do it differently.
There's those wheel chains.
Yep, those chains were on the tractor. Everything was done in the field and pulled away, and the tractor was serviced.
Oh, 48.
Here we go. We got a year, Bob. Now in 48.
Okay.
The new speed sprayer. That's what we essentially use now, the cylindrical sprayer with the drums there.
Mm-hmm.
And this was taken by an outfit called Air Agriculture. I remember them. Remember when they did it? 3 sprayers coming up. Of course, this was a setup. It had to be. We didn't run like that. And they took them from the helicopter, and it appears that the helicopter was a little shaky. That's not the film. And I'm not sure what orchard that was in, but this was taken from the air. And at the time, I remember when they did it, it was quite the thing, Bob. Quite the thing, you know?
Oh, that's the helicopter moving like that?
Yeah, this is a helicopter doing
Making it jump like it?
Yes, that's right. I'm sure it is, because it wasn't jumping before.
No.
So let's wait a little bit. We've been lucky the film hasn't broken. But this was in 48.
Wow.
Now, will you believe me, Bob? You kept telling me the 30s.
I'll explain to you why I thought it was earlier.
Your mind's disintegrating, right?
No, sir. I'll tell you.
Okay, at that time, you see the supply trucks came right up in the field. The sprayer pulled over. We filled the sprayer, and again, we apologize for the shakiness, but I'm sure it's the helicopter he was taking pictures from. We filled it with water, dumped the spray material in, and on it went.
Yeah,
Again, we do that differently now.
now it's quiet again.
Yep, so it was the helicopter. But I can remember back, see, I just graduated from high school in 46, and when they did that, it was quite a thing to have helicopters around here then.
These are priceless pictures, Don.
You know, I'm glad we got to show these things. We've talked about it, and we've left it on the shelf, and you've inspired me. I'm definitely going to go somewhere and get this professionally put onto tape. Although the quality of this is pretty decent, isn't it?
Yes, it depends on what's going to be.
Okay, this is a barn up the road across from where Don LaValle lives right now, advertising the orchard. We saw pictures of the farm market, and this would advertised on the shores of Lake Champlain, in the foothills of the Adirondacks on Lake Champlain. Again, must be the helicopter taking these pictures for us.
47 edition in the back.
That's the 1947 packing house on the back. Aerial pictures right here. Hard to locate myself. We're looking across at Isle Lamont. You can tell in 1948, and the aerial picture now, you can even see the big trees with the little interplants in them. And I can remember taking a ride in this helicopter. You're going to go right down over my house. We're headed right down 191 toward the lake, and taking this ride on the helicopter, Air Agriculture Service Incorporated. And my mother about died when she found out I was in that helicopter that just jumped up over the house there.
Must have been my mother's sister.
Yeah, same thing, right? Here you go. These are the people. These people, Bob, went to, organized by the Maine potato growers, went to Florida in the winter to do citrus, came back here in the spring to do apples, and then went into Maine. The reason they were done, remember when the government started paying a subsidy for not growing potatoes?
Yes.
Well, they had to cut out acreage. Well, the growers up there just very simply planted the rows closer together and grew more potatoes on less acreage. And that's a job I had when I was there, and looks like it could have been me on the left there.
Well, keep your head down.
That was a thrill, I'm telling you, to be able to do that. They're dusting by helicopter. One of the most efficient ways to do it. See how he turns right around at the end of the row and goes back? And they'd come right in and park right between the two bags. You had to really hump, boy. You had the routes ready to open.
Can you still do that today, Don?
Oh yeah, you can, but you see how that just jumps around at the end of the row? You'd have a lot more trouble today spreading that dust all around, even though it isn't poison, you know? So I think very little dusting is done in the apple business anyway. But let me tell you, in the 40s, that was something. Yeah. Now apparently Reverend Parkhurst is in the helicopter looking down. Probably going to be, as that thing says, the hard way. We had to use the grub hoe, pull the grass, the weeds away from the base of the trees. And that's the job the young fellas had in the summer, you know? And you couldn't hire anybody to do that today. And of course, that wasn't a young fellow. That's our regular crew had to do it, you know? Today they use herbicides and spray it down, Bob.
Okay. I was going to ask you.
This is still true, but we mow about 2 or 3 times in the summer. Instead of a 7-foot cutter bar, we have 15-foot rotary mowers, the big ones. You've seen them around. Ralph Hislop was on that outfit right there, guys. Have you missed it? Somebody that's watching your program may recognize it.
Remember you mentioned he started the restaurant?
Ralph went into the restaurant business, I guess, when he got too old to do that. Here's another job the kids did. We had to pile hay, cut hay and pile it around the trees to conserve moisture. Kids did that, and of course the crews did that. See it up the rows there, piled under the tree? That was a moisture control and a grass control program, fellas. That kept the grass down under the tree.
So you didn't remove the hay at all?
We don't remove the hay. That was cut on other open fields around our farm and hauled in there and just dumped in big piles. Here's the one that you saw the stills of back when the tour came here. 600 visitors. I didn't think it was that large. And we took had the picnic down on the lake right about there's my dad, Art Burrell, Dr. Burrell from Peru on his left. And talking to the group, had a big picnic put on by the ladies of the Presbyterian Church right in the area north of John Coolidge's house. That was just an open field at the time. There's the landmark, Bob, the water tanks you talked about.
Absolutely.
And that's 600 people. Quite a job arranging to put them up, and I can remember how thankful they were at the college was there. The house right up there is Larry Ryan's. There's a piece in between it. Frank Dossert was in it at that time. People lined up for the box lunches put out there. I remember as a kid, you were running around, you were doing all kinds of jobs, and we had a great time with that many people here. Lake Champlain right out there. Okay, Marietta and Levi Todruff. Anybody remember them? Levi's there. He was just up here shortly. Marietta, his wife, ran the IGA. Oh boy, Fisher, Muriel Fisher. How am I remembering all these things?
Who's the little?
Muriel Fisher. There is my Aunt Marion there in the pink, and oh boy, Nellie Rawls' daughter. Can't think of her name.
We want to remind you, we did not preview this.
No, I haven't seen this in 20 years.
And so Don is not prepared for this.
I am with you, Bob, because you can always find something to say.
Well, you can always make up something.
That's right, Dr. Burrow.
Don't remember, that's all.
Yeah, I am amazed, Bob, at the quality of these things.
Excellent quality.
Why these names are coming back to me. A good friend of my father and a officer in the Horticultural Society was Dan Dalrymple.
Of course, most of these people are from outside the area.
Yes, they are, all from... No, I don't know why I'm remembering the names. Dalrymple stayed at our house. I guess that's why I remember on that tour.
The workers were locally that you had.
Oh, yes.
And so forth.
Yeah, they were from the Methodist Church. They put on the box lunch. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was quite a thing, you know. You're feeding 600 people down there. There's Mr. Cahoon was there. Did you see him smoking his cigar? He's a man after my own heart, you know. Maybe that's where I got it from, but I can remember he liked a good cigar, and I still do. Okay, here we go. Must be into harvest. Are you getting this, Bob? This is 1946. All right, just with you. How about this? The old Army trucks. We got to be up in front of the storage somewhere, probably. Yep. And everybody, no cars went to the field. There's my dad in the background giving instructions with his floppy hat there. Doesn't look like a very good day, but all the cars had to be parked up here, and everyone trucked to the orchard.
That's the way I remember your dad most.
Yep, and then
About that 48, 49.
then they moved out. Now, do you think they wouldn't let us move people today on this? It may be dangerous, but Bob, we never had an accident. Nobody ever got hurt on that. And today, if you move people like that, they would really criticize you. As the Chazy Central School bus just went by, the green ones, you see it?
No, I didn't know that their buses were green.
Yep, the original ones were. Workers were taken right to the field. Now just take a look at the folks there. They're all local people and some families, and we picked all the apples with these people. They were hard workers, and this wasn't a hard job to them. They were used to hard work then. But
our college boys used to go up and pick a few.
Yeah,
48, 49.
You see these people? This isn't a bunch of kids. These are all older people. Made good money. I wish I could remember that fellow's name. I remember him, though. But I can't remember his name. Notice how he's bending those apples back? Oh, what's his name? He'd be glad to see that. He's still around, but he was a lot younger then than he is now. One of the better pickers. I hope it comes to me. Bob, you don't remember him? He still looks the same today.
No.
You know most anybody. I think it's somebody up from Scioto way, but I'm not sure. See, that's what we picked in. The bottom still comes out of the bag, and you gently take them out of the bag. And
your bushel boxes.
Those are the bushel boxes you kept talking about. The 1 1/8 bushel boxes, Bob.
Yeah. No. A lot of labor to load that onto a truck, too.
Oh, yeah. It should show that at this time. Again, they've automated all that sort of thing. We haven't automated to the extent that the dairy and general farming industry has, but...
Pretty good crop there, Don.
Oh, yeah. We had big crops back in those days, but since we've been trying to replant the orchard, see the young fellow there? Probably came in with his folks. See, they lined all the boxes up there, and everybody picked into them. There's probably a family there. It looks like 2 kids there, and they're really tearing them in there. I hope they're picking them more gently than they look. But I don't know. But that could be. Well, it looks like an elderly lady. That I don't know, but that could be a whole family there coming in to pick. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And. You know, back even, yes, Jim Laramie in his time here, and it's fairly late, when we had the family groups in here, picking was a lot of fun, you know, but now it's got to be too much business. Oh, there, Jim, you're standing there, Dragoon, Lillian Dragoon?
That's Lillian, yes it is.
Lillian Dragoon.
Yes it is.
Yeah. Okay, Alice Lou Rasmussen.
I was going to say Rasmussen, yes.
Stay there for a while, Jim. You can help. I didn't know you were there. How about that?
Lillian
Must have been, yeah?
She lives in Glens Falls now. And Gordon has moved to Glens Falls.
Yeah, and he was up not too long ago.
I saw him, and he told me that Lillian was down there, and that's one reason why they moved down. But she started teaching school in Glens Falls.
Is that Evelyn Ryder? No. Evelyn Boyer? No, I don't know. Jim, do you know? I can't tell either. How about the guy? Kind of looks like her, don't it, huh?
There's your supervisor.
Yeah.
Quality control.
She's checking the boxes. Is that her or not, Jim? Does, doesn't it? Yeah. You remember the guy in the tree earlier there that still looks the same today? He comes around once in a while.
Freeman?
Huh?
Freeman?
No, Freeman wasn't there. No, it wasn't him. But you see, you sat down at lunchtime. We had a group of Canadian pickers who used to come down here. Their Thanksgiving, I'm sure that's right next to Lillian. That's Evelyn Ryder. Huh? Yeah, that's Glennis Wiley.
Glennis Wiley.
Glennis Gravel.
Yes.
I don't know what all this occasion was, to be honest with you.
That looked.
Here we go. There's the truck covered with spray material.
Yeah. One of those girls looked like Buckle. What's her name?
Moving faster than normal, probably. Maybe the film's doing it, but that's the way it was done, guys.
Well, remember, you didn't have videotape. It cost a lot more than a videotape.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's when both Jim and I were here. For Lord's sakes, we had just switched into bins. There's a lot of that done, and we had a lot of hired trucks, as we called them. Norm Richards, Joe Breen, and these people would make their milk runs, leave the cans here. Now, this is something that I know the hired trucks, but these are all our own trucks, so they didn't mind waiting. But let me tell you, when you had 4 trucks piled up like that, it was a wait before the last one got done.
Now, that had to be staged. You wouldn't be pulling in with 4 trucks at one time.
Probably wasn't, but if they did come up, they were all our own men, so they all hopped up on the truck and helped unload the truck. The original storage is 100,000 bushels, and when I came here in '57, we were growing 250 and shipping the other 150 out. These were all piled by hand.
And this is all in the storage room.
All in the storage room. See them? They're coming up the elevator to his right, and he's transferring them to a lateral elevator. Now, yeah.
Getting paid by the box.
Well, everybody moved then, you know. They were glad to have the job, Bob, back in those days, you know.
Yes.
We all were when we started work. We're glad to have a job.
The difference in the sound here is the difference of the different tones that are running through.
Yeah, okay.
See how gently they let those empty,
Yeah.
so you don't bruise.
See, now you've seen there in your earlier film where we take them out by water, but that's Mr. Gagne there. And, you know, Mr. Gagne and many of the older employees they handled everything like it was their own, and they knew that it was, they bruised easily. This was one of the earlier graders. I don't know what was what or whatever went on there. I have no idea at the time, but I suppose the bag apples, the utility apples, were taken off. I recognized nobody on there. Kind of similar to what we're doing today, except the different size apples were coming off. And see how we had to make new boxes every year, Bob. The apples were picked in the wooden crates, repacked into the wooden crates, and sent to market in them. You see on the right, the top of those boxes, a purple liner was put in there. Now watch what they're doing there. That's a face and fill. There you go. See, they take the bottom of the box, Bob, and they place all the apples in evenly. So then the bottom becomes the top when they do turn it over like that, you know?
Yeah.
Now you see a cardboard top went on and 2 slats. They had to be nailed. And there should be a label on the end, or a label will be going on the end. And so every year new crates had to be made. Now there's some cardboard there, so it's kind of making me a liar out of some of these things. We were in cardboard and wood at the time. The lunchroom, the same lunchroom as downstairs now, except we've added this room up here where we are to make it bigger. And that's the same as it was built in the packing house was built in '57. A little drink of water, a little wash of the hands, you know. The other facilities were also in there. A little Baraxo to clean them up there before they ate. I don't recognize anybody there again myself. Right on the left, Connie Carpenter. It was Connie Patnode at the time.
Well, here's the railroad cars.
Maybe that's something we saw in the in fast trucks for distribution. Remember that? I guess this is going to be the truck. Again, everything by hand. Those are the packed fruit, because you can tell by the pads and the slats on the top. And that's the way it was done. They had the low dry out front. Remember I said that our front packing house was out there?
Local chain store.
Apparently, a lot of work went into this, and apparently they had to pay somebody to do all this labeling in there, whatever you call it. Chances are that was Robbie right in Plattsburgh at one of the local chain stores. And whether it was a special occasion or not, that little sign up on there, I always wondered, I've got that sign still here. I wondered what in the devil that was for. That little thing that says Chazy Orchards on it there. Lighting wasn't too good, was it?
The lighting?
Yeah.
The lenses weren't good. They didn't have the...
Hey, that's my house. That's my house. That's my mother.
That's where you lived when you were raised, you mean?
Yep, that's where Jeff lives now. My two brothers, Phil on the left and Paul on the right. I guess they both wanted a hug and a kiss and were glad to be in the movies. Yep, Jeff is living there, and one of my grandsons, David, is his room is the room I had when I was a kid there.
Older than they are right now.
By God, they sure like apples. My brother Paul and Phil would like to see those. I got to get that thing done, Bob. We got to put it on tape, but you know, it hasn't broken a bit. The quality of that tape.
If you, after seeing this, I think you'd get it done within a week because it's just so great.
Well, Bob, you know, too, my mother's gone now, but boy, I can remember when she was that age. That was a long time ago. When those two boys in front of you are 50 and over, so figure that out, Bob. Yeah, but the quality of this thing was excellent, though. We thought this tape would break apart, Bob.
We're right to the end now.
We are?
Getting close.
Probably my dad. This is the area that the helicopters are coming down.
It'll be straight across.
And looks like the end.
Right there.
Well, this is an oldie, Bob. This thing is what, 1948? This makes the thing, there's Calvin flipping this